Get out of bed, wash my face, brush my teeth, do some homework, maybe in the afternoon go to the grocery store and get some groceries. Well, in order to do that, I have to make a shopping list. Milk, butter, eggs, sugar, dog food, the essentials, essentially. At some point, I open up my phone and check Facebook. Throughout the recurring, almost uniform updates about relationships and daily activities, they scattered a few sponsored advertisements, blinking with that same flamboyancy and stubbornness of the teenage posts surrounding them. Top 10 songs of the week. Top 20 things about celebrities that you didn't know. Top 50 colleges in the US. Our society, both as a whole and for each individual, revolves around this constant listing that is present in everything we do. At times, one might even say that it is what we rely on, because we see life as a linear progression, much akin to a list of its own. In addition to this, it is through prioritizing, categorizing, and classifying that we have developed a world of separation, disregard, but through it all progress, with an incessantly active mindset serving as a greater entity, one that possesses control over the individual and the whole. Shall I list what this speech is about? What it comes down to is this. 1, the individual. How are lists affecting each person independently of one another? 2, the collective, society as a whole. And 3, an analysis and a proposition for a new kind of list. Well, let's run through my points. We can check things off as we go along. Having a mental to-do list on repeat is overwhelming and stressful and may be the cause behind people burning out as adolescents or even younger. In fact, when the rankings on these various lists replace the value that we hold for one another as human beings, the results can even be tragic. In fact, some psychologists today are finding that our youth is in the midst of a crisis as a result of their SAT scores or their class rank. Author and college admissions expert Joy Yeager-Hyman writes, "Unfortunately, the longer that I work with these ambitious students, the more I see that twinkle start to fade by junior year. Best friends start competing ruthlessly with one another and keeping secrets from each other because no one wants to lose her competitive edge in the college race. Students start ranking each other based on their SAT scores." Now, undoubtedly there's a link between this cold, ruthless ranking and the rise of depression in young Americans, but at the same time, we cannot simply take this and automatically assume that lists are a bad thing. It's much more complicated than that, because while these lists may exhaust us and drive us into the ground, imagine what life would be like without them. Having no next step would send us all into a state of panic and disarray. If we were unable to organize our thoughts and ideas and responsibilities, they would come at us all at once as this big conglomeration of chaos. Now, at the societal level, lists also fascinate us and draw lots of attention. There are lists for just about everything, very often focusing society's direction and drive. The Fortune 500 list tabulates the personal wealth of the top 500 people in the world. Time magazine puts out a list of the most influential individuals annually. Each year, shortlists are produced for the Nobel Prize for Peace and Literature and Science, and of course, there's the US News and World Report's list of top 40 colleges in the US. To be on these lists constitutes the reward and recognition that society has for brilliance and success. Of course, there is the other side of the coin. There is a list of the top most wanted criminals put out by the FBI. There is a blacklist produced by the National Security Agency that actually prohibits people from flying on airplanes because they have been deemed a threat to society. Just as Santa Claus has a list of all the children who are naughty or nice, society also seems to divide itself up into one or the other. However, in reality, just like there isn't really a Santa Claus, most of us average citizens probably won't end up on the shortlist for the Nobel Prize or the NSA blacklist. So then why? Why do we pay these lists so much attention? Is our desire for clarity and order so great that we feel the need to hammer ourselves into rank and file even when rank and file don't really apply to our everyday experience? Do we simply feel that every aspect of life is competitive, from who makes the most money, to who is the most brilliant, to who is the most handsome or beautiful? There are some clear cases in which lists are taken far too seriously. In fact, several times throughout history, they have actually determined whether one would live or die. As recently as 1994, the Hutu power movement led by Colonel Bagosora in Rwanda drew up lists of all the Tutsi individuals who were to be executed by the military, militias such as the Interahamwe, or even by Hutu civilians. 1. Neighbors were told to kill their neighbors because their names were on the list. 2. Teachers were told to kill their students even in elementary school because their names were on the list. And 3. Preachers and priests and doctors all participated in the slaughter of over 800,000 Tutsi lives. You see, this list of Tutsi names is reminiscent of another even longer list, that compiled by the Nazis during World War II of all of the Jewish civilians who were then rounded up and systematically sent to death camps. A list of 6 million names was behind the 6 million who died. This list of Jews determined who was to be sought and apprehended and executed, but just as this list had the power of death, there was another glorious but unfortunately smaller list that existed parallel to this one. The humanitarian hero Schindler desperately sought to compile a list as long and comprehensive as possible of the Jews that he effectively removed from these death camps and transferred into his business endeavor. Whereas the Nazi list had meant death, Schindler's list meant life. From the dawn of human civilization, lists have held this power over life and death. The most ancient creation myths, including the hymn to the Purusa from the Vedas or the Enuma Elish from the Fertile Crescent, are essentially a list of things as they were created by this giant cosmic sacrifice. 1, the eye of the victim became the sun. 2, the brains became the moon. 3, the intestines became the sands, the earth, the rivers. It is no coincidence that we as humans make lists when we create. When we originally imagined the creation of the cosmos as a listing process as well. We have always felt that lists are creative and beautiful. Maybe the key is to keep this power directed in a positive manner and not in a way that can diminish our lives or harm us. Now, I doubt that I will ever be able to stop listing all the things that I have to do when I wake up in the morning, but I do think that I could stop and next to this list make another. What if I were to make a list that wasn't so oriented towards the future and towards accomplishment? What if instead I made a list of all that I was grateful for? This list is neither future-oriented nor is it a ranking of things that I find to be more important than each other or competing with each other. Each thing is as important as the next. And as I go down this list, I'm not diminishing the value of any one component. This long list instead becomes a celebration of all that is good in my life. We have considered how lists have the tremendous power to organize and create efficiency, but we have also seen how there can be a darker side to listing, how lists can dehumanize and objectify something when the objects or people on the list are singled out or pitted against each other. Now, today, during this competition, it is the job of the judges to listen to our speeches and then thoughtfully produce a list ranking the speakers in this round from 1 to 7. And we're so grateful for the time and energy that our judges have put into making these lists, because without them we couldn't have this speech competition. However, in order to maintain a balanced perspective, what I'm proposing is that we also consider another. A list of all that is good about what we are doing here. Perhaps rather than a ranking, a countdown to our success. In addition to competing, we are 3, sharing ideas, 2, respecting and appreciating each other's talents, and 1, as high school students in speech, we are preparing ourselves to become citizens of our great country, and this is all happening right here, right now, in this very moment. Together, we're shooting for the stars. It's time for blast off, don't you think?